fabulous episode of Cooking with CannonBelles. This time, we're gonna have our senior intern and my fabulous husband, Greg, make us macaroni and cheese. So, hope you enjoy.
Thank you. Fabulous intern is pretty good, but I was hoping for executive chef this time. They say you can't trust a skinny chef, which should make me pretty trustworthy. But today we're going to make some macaroni and cheese, which is one of our favorite dishes to eat. Most people use macaroni and cheese as a side dish. We like it as a main course. Recipe doesn't differ at all. It's just a matter of how much you want to make and how much you want to save. So we're going to feature CannonBelles cheese, specifically their cheddar cheese and Gouda, which are going to be the main ingredients. The secondary ingredients are going to be Velveeta cheese, which some people would argue is not a cheese at all, and they've got a very good point. But it does have a lovely texture, a mild flavor, and it'll help make this whole thing creamy. We're also going to add about 2 ounces of blue cheese. This is Gorgonzola, which is a little bit milder blue cheese, but it really adds a nice little zing to your macaroni and cheese. So those are the main ingredients. We're going to start first, though, by making a roux. Before you start grating cheeses or making a roux, though, put on a Dutch oven, set it, put in enough water to boil a pound of elbow pasta. You also use mini shells or rotini, whatever makes you happy. We're going to go with elbows because that's the classic macaroni and cheese. And also preheat your oven to 350. Now it's time to make a roux. Okay, so we've got the flour and the butter in here melting. A roux is a very common part of French cooking, and also pretty much anytime you make a gravy or chicken a la king or things of that sort, it really starts with the roux. Equal parts flour and butter, actually flour and fat. You could use oil, you could use Crisco, you could use turkey fat, or whatever you like, but equal parts. And stir it up and let it melt. Here, let me show you a picture of that. So there we have it, equal parts. It's just starting to bubble. We're going to keep going for about 2 to 3 minutes or so. There are 3 different kinds of roux. There is light, there is blonde, and there is brown. The only difference between those roux is how long you cook them. As the butter heats up, it browns the flour, and it adds sort of a nice nutty flavor. However, if you're using the roux as a thickener, which we are, the longer you cook it, or the more brown it gets, the less binding power it has. So, it's bubbling away nicely. You want to make sure it's all stirred and combined. Now, that's our roux. What we're going to do now is add some liquid. We're going to add half a cup of milk and 1 cup of chicken broth. If we used just milk with this roux, what we will wind up with is, it's called a bechamel sauce, which is French for white sauce. And it's the basis for many, many different sauces that they make. So, again, keeping the heat around medium or so, maybe a little bit higher. Use a whisk now to help incorporate that flour butter mixture into your liquids. And you don't have to stir the whole time, but stir pretty often. This should take probably 3 to 5 minutes before it starts to thicken and come to a boil. So, pasta water is boiling. I'm going to add the pasta. 16 ounces, 1 pound of noodles. Be careful when you're buying them, because some pasta companies are putting 12 ounces of noodles into a box instead of 16, and that can really throw off your recipe, so keep an eye out for that. So put them in your boiling water, and salted boiling water, and stir. Set the timer for the manufacturer's directions, usually 9 to 10 minutes, but read the box. And it says to make it al dente. What al dente actually means is to the tooth in Italian, which means it shouldn't be mushy. Al dente is, you can feel it. It's got a little bit of texture, a little bit of bite, but certainly not crunchy or crispy. Key is, though, make it how you like it. Personally, I like it a little bit past al dente, at least for macaroni and cheese. All right, it's been about 3 minutes or so on our bechamel sauce. When we started, it was just all liquid. Now you can see it coats a spoon, and it's thickening up. That's because the heat and the moisture and the fat are unwrapping the starch molecules from the flour, and that's going to do a couple things. It's going to keep our cheese sauce smoother and creamier, and it also helps, the flour also helps absorb extra liquid. And it keeps the cheese sauce from breaking. And by breaking, I mean, you've probably tried to make nachos with cheddar cheese and it sort of turns into half oil and half solids. That's because the protein breaks away from the fat and separates, and that's called breaking. So this roux that we're making is going to help prevent that, because nobody wants macaroni and cheese that's half oil and half crunchies. All right, once your roux has thickened and is bubbling away gently and nicely, we're going to add the spices. We've got salt, pepper, garlic, and dry mustard we're going to put in. Also, 2 shakes of Worcestershire sauce, and 5 shakes of your favorite hot sauce. 5 or 6, 7, 3, whatever you like. I like 5 or 6, it works out best. If you're afraid of hot, it does make it hot, it just adds a little bit of flavor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you consider that in general cheese is bland and a pound of pasta is bland, it's really not going to heat it up a lot. So we're going to start adding the cheeses now. With the cheddars, I don't know if you saw originally, but we've got 2 bowls. This is 10 ounces and this is 6 ounces, so a pound altogether. The 10 ounces is going to go into the sauce, and the 6 ounces is going to go on top for a nice cheesy topping. The key when you're adding the cheeses is to do it slowly. Don't overwhelm it. Put in a handful at a time, stir it till it's melted, and then do some more. It's particularly important when you're using the block cheeses, the cheddar and the Gouda, to shred them. It melts much more easily. If it's in chunks, it has a tendency to get a little bit gritty. And if you're gonna use, if you can't use CannonBelles cheese, I feel badly for you, but stay away from pre-shredded cheese, because those generally have a coating, light coating of cornstarch on them, and that's not going to help your macaroni and cheese at all. I personally like starting with a Velveeta, just because it's a lot of volume and it'll help the other cheese melt. Speaking of cheeses, we only talked about Gouda and cheddar so far. The real secret to success, whatever cheeses you use, you need one cheese that has a lot of flavor, and aged cheddar is the classic and it's perfect. You also need at least one more cheese. So a lot of options there. We're using Gouda because it's high in moisture. You can use queso fresco. You can use Monterey Jack. You can use, I forgot the other one. Gruyere, which is a member of the Swiss family, but it's a stringy, has a nice mild flavor, but again, is fairly high in moisture. So just put in the last of the shredded cheese. What I didn't mention, it's sort of important, is that as you're stirring it in and cooking it, keep stirring, because it's really easy to scorch this on the bottom, and nobody likes burnt milk, burnt cheese. Once you're done, turn off the burner, and even better yet, set it on a cool one. That timer means that our pasta is done. So pour your noodles away from you into a colander or strainer, and then using cold water, give the noodles a good bath. There's still a lot of hot water around them and in them. This keeps the pasta from continuing to cook in the basket here. So stir it around with your hands a bit. You'll be surprised how hot it still is. When it's just when it's not uncomfortable for your hand anymore, that's probably good enough. Give your pasta a good shake or two, Try to keep as much in the pan as you can. And keep in mind that there's still a fair amount of water inside some of these noodles, so they're hollow after all. Stir it up again, count to about 3, and shake it some more. And just go ahead and put it right back into the Dutch oven that you started with. Now it's time to put it all together, and this is pretty much the easy part. Take your pot of cheese sauce and pour it into your Dutch oven full of noodles. I like to use a rubber spatula because then I can get just about all that cheese sauce out. I don't know if you can see this very well. Even though I was really diligent at stirring and whisking, there's still a little browning around the corners and the bottom. That's nothing bad, but ideally there wouldn't be anything. Anyway, with your rubber spatula, mix it up. And now you have to decide what you want to bake it in. This is enough macaroni and cheese to put in a 9x13 casserole dish. It'll be about 2.5 inches tall, and it'll feed a bunch of people. If you're gonna have company, or feel like just being a little bit special, you can use some other possibilities. We've got some small cast iron pans, which are sort of cute and fun. Be careful you don't burn yourself on the handles. We've also got these nice ramekins. So what I'm going to do is cook some in these and put the rest in a 9x9 pan. Cooking times will all be about the same. I recommend 20 minutes at 350 degrees. But the key is when you look in at it, if it is hot and bubbly, it's probably ready to go. Everything is already cooked, so it's not going to be anything bad if you don't keep it in for 20 minutes. So just keep an eye on it, but 20 minutes, especially if you're using the large casserole, is a pretty good rule of thumb. So let's start filling up our stuff. Suggested another idea, and if it doesn't fit in the pan you want, maybe I'll just grab another ramekin and put it in there. Again, if you're having a bunch of people over, probably the large baking pan is the way to go, but if you want to make people feel special and spoiled, these individual serving dishes are sort of fun if you have them. All right, we're going to pop these in the oven. We're going to start with about 10 minutes, check them and see how it goes. And remember, the last part is to put on the special cheese topping. One of the guidelines in our house is whoever cooks doesn't have to clean up. So it's really nice to have one of the CannonBelles originals doing the dishes. Thank you, dear. Time's up, at least for 10 minutes. We're gonna check and see what we've got here. It smells great. I wish you could smell it. It's just starting to heat up around the edges a little bit. We're gonna go for at least 5 more minutes. One thing I forgot to tell you, we talked about a roux, what that is, and bechamel is roux with milk and fluid added. Once you add cheese to a bechamel, it is now a Mornay sauce. So technically, it's a French sauce, and it's said that it was developed by a guy named Mornay, who was the chef for one of the Louis from France. So there you go. Here's just a little bit more than 15 minutes. You can see that it's bubbling nicely. Just starting to bubble here. I'm not too concerned about it being too cool though. So we're going to take these out and put on their toppings. As you're taking them out, make sure that you have something that can hold the heat other than your countertop, unless your countertop is designed to have hot stuff on it. But you don't want to burn yourself or anything else in your kitchen. All right, you probably noticed that the oven rack was in the center position. Should have told you that. Right now I'm going to turn my oven from bake to high broil and get it started. So here we have our remaining 6 ounces of shredded CannonBelles cheddar. We're just going to sprinkle some on top of each one of these. For making cheese meals, may as well have a wonderful cheesy topping on top. Some people think the classic topping is a breadcrumb topping, and that is just fine. I'm not going to give you the recipe for that here, but you can look it up online, and it's basically taking fresh bread, believe it or not, instead of dried or stale breadcrumbs, putting it in a food processor with some butter, spitting it up, and then popping it on top of your stuff and broiling it for a couple minutes. Very, very simple, not difficult at all. All right, again, don't burn yourself. Hot mitts, back into the oven. And here's something that's really important. When your broiler is on high, it gets really hot. Again, we don't want to burn the tops of any of these. So my high recommendation, strongest recommendation, is set your timer for 1 minute and check them every minute. Also rotate them after you check them, then reset your timer for a minute, because the broilers don't cook everything the same amount of time. So if you want them even and similar, rotate them every minute. All right, that is the 4 minutes so far. As you can see, it's starting to brown on the top. If you want to eat it like that, that's great. Nothing wrong with that at all. Deanne, however, likes it browner than that. So here we go. Probably for 1 more minute or so. Rotating. 1 more minute. Okay, I just took these out of the broiler. I don't know if you can see it from there, but I can see it from here. It is still bubbling hot. But it's nicely browned on top without being burnt, and I can't wait to try it. Now, couple things you need to be aware of. This is lava hot. It will hurt you right now if you touch the pan or if you touch the macaroni and cheese inside it. Give it a chance to cool, and before you serve it to your friends or family, pick yours, stick a fork in it, make sure it's not going to hurt anybody. Second thing, and probably the most important thing of this whole demonstration, is actually 2 things. One, I hope you really like it. I hope you've had some fun and learned some things. But keep in mind that a recipe is only a guideline. So Deanne and I like this a lot, but make it your own. If you want to put some ham in it, or bacon bits, or shrimp, or lobster, do it. If you don't like garlic, but you like onion powder, try that. If you're afraid of hot sauce and want something else, or just take it out, that's fine. Experiment with it, have fun with it, make it your own. Because what's most important is that you're happy with your cheese when you're all done. Thanks for joining me tonight. I hope you had as much fun as I did, and I'm going to leave it to Deanne to talk to you about where to find this recipe online.
Thanks for joining us while we cooked with the bells again. This, as Greg says, is one of my favorite dishes. I hope you like it as much as we do. We will have the recipe posted on our website at CannonBelles.com. You'll see the link right here. And if you ever have any questions or comments, please email us at info@CannonBelles.com. And we look forward to cooking with you again. Thanks for joining us.